Thank you, Claire.
Matt Marvel on BBC Radio Suffolk.
So in this hour, the sofa guest, Joanna van der Hoeven. She's a teacher, she's an author, she's a Druid priestess, and she set up her own college. She's Canadian, by the way. So there should be plenty to talk about over the next hour. So don't go anywhere, plenty to talk about. BBC Radio Suffolk, that's Genesis, follow you, follow me. And my sofa guest today, Joanna van der Hoeven, is a fan of that song. We're going to play her first track later on, the first record that you ever bought. But you're a fan of Genesis, yeah?
I am, yes, definitely. I love Genesis. I love Peter Gabriel.
So when Phil Collins took over,
there's a couple good albums still.
So Joanna, you are a teacher, an author, an artist. Would you say an artist?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. A Druid priestess, and you set up your own college. And I think we can hear from the accent you're Canadian as well. So there's a lot going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
So tell me, what is a Druid? What is a Druid belief?
Well, Druidry is the ancient religion of the British Isles. So basically, if we look to a pre-Christian religion or a pre-Christian spiritual tradition based in the British Isles, we're looking for Druidry, which when you think... When we look back at the texts that we have, we see that Druid is the oldest word that we have for a priest of a pre-Christian religion here in the British Isles, and we don't know what it was called before that word came about, 2,000 years ago. But it is a very earth-based tradition. It's a mostly pagan tradition, although you do get some Celtic Christian Druids as well. Some people don't see it as a religion at all, but more as a philosophy, as a way of life. So they take the kind of religious and spiritual aspect out of it and just apply it as a philosophy. And it, for me, Druidry is a very animistic tradition. So we see that there is spirit in everything, that there is spirit in all aspects of nature. And we seek to honor that spirit in all aspects of nature.
So from an acorn to an animal, it's all got a spirit, a tree.
It's not the same as like a human consciousness. Everything has its own experience, its own sense of being. So, we don't walk up to trees and expect to have a human conversation with them. They don't speak human English, they experience things very differently from us. But essentially what we're looking at is to say that all of nature has an inherent value. So we seek to honor the sacred in all of nature.
What about when you consume? Because obviously you need wood for fire. How does that fit in with it?
Yes, well, we honor the cycles of nature. So we honor the cycles of living and dying. And we understand that you can't have life without death. So we understand that if you want to eat, you have to grow your own food. You have to kill things in order to survive, whether it's vegetables, whatever. If you look at the soil is made up of dead animal matter, dead plant matter. It's all organic matter, but the world of the living is built upon the world of the dead. That's how we get our nourishment.
That's absolutely fascinating. And so you've got a college. You've set up your own college to teach others, and you are a Druid priestess. That's right, isn't it? So
yes,
what is being a Druid priestess? What does that involve?
Well, working as a priest or a priestess. Some people don't add the ESS on the end. But it basically means working in service to your community, and it means living a life in service to your Druidry, however you perceive your Druidry to be. So it's using your wit, your intelligence, your skills in order to live your faith, to actually be able to walk your talk. So for me, for 8 years or so, I was working as a celebrant, which is somebody who performs rituals. I did weddings and hand fastings and funerals and stuff for the local community and for other people not necessarily of the Druid faith, but people who just wanted something outside of the normal kind of Christian tradition. They didn't feel that they had a sort of association with any, they didn't want a church wedding or that. They weren't quite sure what they wanted, but they respected and honored nature, so they came to me for that sort of thing. And then lately, in the last few years, I've really taken a step back from that and focused more on teaching and on writing. So I'm using the skills that I have as an author and newly developed skills as a teacher to teach the tradition and live my Druidry in that respect.
I think you come from we'll talk about this more later, but you come from a long line of teachers, don't you?
I do,
You've got
yes.
quite a few teachers, so this is something you've kind of
family.
discovered in yourself.
Yeah.
So you set up a college. How does that work?
Well, I didn't set up the college initially. The college was set up by a friend of mine, Kevin Emmons, who's in the United States. He lives in Maine in the United States. And he originally set up Druid College there, I think it was 3 years ago now. And in 2015, he called me up and said, do you want to try something here in the UK? I'd love to see Druid College spread. So I said, oh yeah, okay, that sounds great. So I founded the UK version of Druid College. And we get together, it's a face-to-face teaching as opposed to a distance learning course. So we get together for, several weekends throughout the year with our students. And we have lectures and we have workshops and we teach them elements of the Druid tradition, both ancient and modern.
So how long is the course? How long would you enroll for?
Well, we have a 3-year program. The first year is about getting the basics of the Druid tradition, learning all about the history and the everyday aspects of Druidry. The second year is diving more into actually living as a Druid, and the third year is more like a thesis, finding your area where you can live in service. We call it declaring your chair. So finding out where you can work in a community, and we help provide you with information, with support in finding your path.
So you've written books on Druidry, haven't you? You've written 4 books and you're writing another one at the moment, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And you've got the college. Now, is the college a physical place where people come, or can it be anywhere? How does that work?
We have a venue in Essex actually that we're using. It's a lovely little village hall. It's very eco-friendly, but we don't have like our own building that we personally own.
So I think college, I'm thinking grand building on a hill somewhere.
Yeah.
You don't have that.
No, we're using the older term of the word college as simply a place for learning, and it can move around. They had bardic colleges in Scotland, so a couple hundred years ago, and those weren't necessarily in one place. It's just simply where people could come, get together, study the tradition.
When did you know you had an interest in this? At what point in your life was it that you thought this is for me? This is my calling.
Well, I've been a Druid for probably about 15 years now, but I think I've always been pagan. And when we look at the word pagan, it refers to somebody who is who takes their inspiration from nature. It's from the Latin paganus, which basically is somebody who is a rural person, doesn't live in the city. That's where the civ is from Roman times comes. So it's somebody who is embedded in nature. And I've always had that feeling of being embedded in nature ever since, I grew up in Canada. So I had, on the edge of a village, I had the mountains and lakes and rivers and streams and endless miles of forest, to wander around in. So it was always a part of my growing up. And this, when I came, I think I've always been a pagan, but when I actually discovered that, there is a religion, there's a spirituality that actually honors all of these things that you hold so very dear and so very sacred, I thought, yeah, okay, this is the path for me. And then I came to Druidry a little while later, which was a specific thread that I could follow in the wider umbrella term of paganism.
So I know you wrote your first book at the age of 13, didn't you?
I started it.
You
Yeah.
started it. What was the book about?
It's a medieval fantasy book, actually. And I actually finished it in my 30s when I was actually at University Campus Suffolk, now Suffolk University. So
you started at 13, and it took you until the age of 30, in your 30s, to get it published.
I had to rewrite it many times because, as you can imagine, a 13-year-old's writing is very different from a 30-year-old.
Yes. So that was a medieval fantasy. That was your first book.
Yeah.
And then subsequently your books have been about pagan beliefs.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I released a book of poetry after that, a small book of poetry, but then I started getting into writing about Druidry. But my first two books are now out of print anyway, so...
Do you ever revisit them and look at them again and think, I would have done it differently, or that was perfect?
I read the first medieval fantasy book again for the first time last year, and I thought, I got to write the follow-up to this one soon.
So that could be on the cards.
It could be,
Could be. Now, every day on Lesley Dolphin's programme, we have the key questions. We need the... There's a key question tin. If you pick one of the questions from this tin, dive in. Don't try not to look. They got two keys.
Two keys. Oh no!
I'll undo them. I think that was the one you got.
Right.
So what does that say on it?
Favorite TV soap.
I can't imagine you're the kind of person to watch a TV soap.
No, I don't really watch.
Do you watch any television?
I do, yeah, of course, yeah. I have a couple programs that I like. I love antiques programs. So,
Antiques Roadshow.
Antiques Road Trip. Antiques Roadshow, not so much.
Oh.
Stuff like Antiques Road Trip, Bargain Hunt.
Yeah.
I love all of those. So, and I mean, I do watch a couple of other programs. I love The Big Bang Theory. That's
yes, that's
that
constantly on in my house. My wife absolutely adores it. It's fine, but on the third or fourth repeat showing, it becomes a little bit...
you watch them once and then you
move on.
Get on with your life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the spirit I'm looking for. Joanna van der Hoeven is my sofa guest this afternoon. It's BBC Radio Suffolk. Matt Marvel sitting in for Lesley Dolphin this afternoon. Let's catch up with what's going on the roads. BBC Radio Suffolk. It's Friday afternoon. Matt Marvel sitting in for Lesley Dolphin for today only. Still got a sofa guest though. It's Joanna van der Hoeven. She's a Druid priestess and much more besides, and we'll find out a little bit more now. So back to you. So, born in Canada, we can tell that from the accent. Mm-hmm. You grew up, enjoy life, enjoy school, that side of things.
Yeah. I had a really good childhood. Had a lot of freedom, and it was basically before video games became really popular, so I was outside a lot.
So you lived in the mountains? I
did, yes. I lived in the Laurentian Mountains in Quebec, in a French-speaking part of Canada. So I was bilingual pretty much straight away, and just enjoyed being outside and playing and biking and just having a lot of freedom.
And that probably links in to why you've taken your kind of the Druidry route, doesn't it? Just loving the outside. I mean, today even you go canoeing, don't you? And enjoy the outside life. That stayed with you.
I love horse riding, although I don't get to do it as much as I would like because it's getting very expensive these days.
Not tempted to buy a horse then?
Yeah, no, it's just you might as well feed it £20 notes.
Yeah.
But it's I love being outside. My husband and I, we go canoeing down the Stour or Store. Some people pronounce it differently.
Yeah, I think it depends which side of the border you're
exactly.
on. Yeah.
But we love canoeing down the Stour, as I say it. He says Stour. And we love hiking. We live near Rendlesham Forest, so I spend a lot of time there. We're very close to the North Sea, so I love going for walks and stuff.
So what did your parents do? What were their...
Well, my father was a landscaper, and it's a lovely story because my grandfather, my mother's father, had a flower store and a nursery in the village. And my dad was looking for work, so he came and he met my mum, who was working in her father's store, and that's how they got together. So I have a very green-fingered background coming from both my mother and my father in that respect. But I also have a strong teaching background because my mother was a teacher. She's retired now. My aunt was a teacher. My brother and sister are both teachers. So I always thought growing up that I would become a teacher myself. If I couldn't be a writer, I would be a teacher. I would be, an English teacher. And it's funny because it actually has turned out that I'm now both an author and a teacher.
Yeah.
So it's all come full circle, and I'm really pleased about that.
And what does your mum think of that? Is she proud of you for doing that?
She is. My parents are brilliant. They've always supported me in everything, every choice that I've made, even if they disagreed with it. They were always there for me, and it's nice to have that support.
Are they still in Canada?
They're still in Canada. Yeah, all my family is still in Canada.
So do you get to see them often?
Yeah. I go back for Christmas at the very least every year, and I was back this summer as well. So I try and get back as often as I can, but I'm very conscious of the amount of air travel that I do because it's not very good for the environment. It uses up a huge amount of energy to get planes going. So I try and reduce that as much as possible.
You wouldn't be tempted to take a boat, a long voyage?
Well, I had considered it because that's how my dad came across.
Okay.
He took the boat across. And I've always wanted to see what that was like.
So you might give it a go once. Just
just once.
Yeah, why not? Why not? So school, obviously you love learning and you love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So school was good for you?
Yes, I loved school. I thrived in it. I came from a very small town, a small village, which had an even smaller English community. So going to English school, I had 5 people in my grade 6 class. That's how small it was.
Yeah.
We had grade 1 and 2 together, grade 3 and 4 together, and grade 5 and 6 together, all taught, by one teacher for 2 grades. And I was thinking last night, I was wondering, how did the teacher manage to teach grade 5 and 6 together at the same time? I honestly don't remember.
From your point of view of being a teacher now and teaching others, you can kind of understand kind of how difficult that may or may not have been.
They must have been exceptional jugglers, and I have no idea how they managed to do it, but they did it, and they did it really, really well, and I'm really thankful for it. But yeah, I came from a very small kind of background when school-wise, and then I went to high school, and high school was brilliant, but there were some challenges in high school as well. I was bullied for a couple of years in high school. And so, that's something that I take very seriously, and I'm always trying to work to promote, anti-bullying policies. But, the bullies were older girls, so when they graduated, I had a great time. The school was mine again.
The school was yours. So at what age did you come? Why did you come to Suffolk, and at what age was that?
So I was 24 when I moved to the UK. Where did I move to first? I moved to Cambridge, actually, first, and that was with my now ex-husband. We divorced a few years later. He was the reason I came to the UK in the first place. His visa in Canada had expired, so he had to come back here, and I'd always had a love of British mythology and myths and legends, and so I thought, okay.
But Cambridgeshire and Suffolk were relatively flat, and where you came from, the mountains, the landscape, that must have been
it was a bit of a
culture shock.
It was. But, you get used to it, and the people are lovely.
But do you miss the landscape of Canada? I
do. But, where I live now in Suffolk is equally beautiful. It's just a different beauty. So you get used to different things.
I flew to America last year, and I remember looking down, we were flying over Canada, thinking, I've got to go. It's so remote, so empty. Got to go there one day and have a look around and have some adventures.
Go in the autumn when the leaves are changing color. Yeah. It's fantastic.
So, very outdoorsy type of person. Singing as well?
Yeah, I do a lot of singing. I was actually in a band. That's how I met my ex. He was the guitarist in a band that we had when I was living in Vancouver in British Columbia.
What kind of music were you playing?
We were very alternate rock style.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Belly dancing.
Yes.
You're a belly dancing teacher as well, aren't you?
I am, yes. I came to belly dance over a decade ago. I was looking for dance classes, and I actually started out with flamenco. And I did a beginners and intermediate flamenco class, and then the teacher left and went back to Spain. So I was, what do I do? And then I saw belly dance classes were being offered, so I gave it a try, and loved it. Spent a few years, learning as much as I could about belly dance, and then I came across tribal fusion belly dance, and I said, "This is what I want to do."
So, what is tribal? How does that differ from regular belly dancing?
Well, there's many different strands of belly dance. You've got Egyptian belly dance, you've got Turkish belly dance. You've got all these different strands, and what tribal fusion does is it kind of fuses all the different styles together, as well as incorporating a lot of modern dance interpretation with that. And it also includes some other styles as well. A little bit of Spanish flamenco is in there as well, which really appealed to me.
So you teach other people to do this. So does that how much of your time does that take?
Well, I only teach one class a week now. I used to teach both beginners and intermediate belly dance classes, but with my schedule filling up, I reduced that. So now I just teach intermediate and have my own our own little dance troupe that we perform throughout Suffolk in.
So you said in your biog that your house is full of instruments, full of musical instruments all over the place.
Yes.
Just what have you got? What kind of instruments can you play? And
well, I can play all of them mediocre, but I'm not proficient in any one of them. But I have guitars. I have a harp, which I absolutely adore. Very Celtic, very Druid type thing to use. I've got tin whistles, and I've got recorders and harmonicas. I've got a doumbek, which is a wonderful Middle Eastern drum. I have a strum stick, which is a 3-stringed instrument. It's otherwise known as an Appalachian dulcimer. So, there's always something to do in my house.
Are you looking out for any more instruments? Are you...
I don't look out for them personally. They just seem to fall into my lap all the time. And sadly, most of them are gathering dust because I'm so busy.
That's a good thing. So, key question time. Question number 2. Let's see what we can get this time.
All right. Favorite tipple? Well, this is interesting because my friend Haley came over and visited me from Canada in November, and she's a big ale fan, and I've never really liked ale.
Okay.
And we did the Adnams tour in South Wales, and I learned all about the brewery and how fantastic and eco-friendly and wonderful their policies are. And I said, I have to start drinking beer.
They've got you, haven't they?
I'm here to save the environment. I'm going to drink beer. But I have a new fondness for real ale, yeah. But as well, their gin is just fantastic.
And gin is becoming very trendy at the moment, isn't it? There's gin bars popping up all over the place.
Yeah. To be honest, that's the only gin that I've ever tried that I actually like.
It's an acquired taste, isn't it? I can't say I'm the biggest fan of it, Josh.
No, I hated it for many, many years, but I think that's just because I didn't find the right one.
I think you've got to find the right mixer as well. Did you have a particular tonic with it?
It's probably going to sound very... I like lemonade with it, actually.
Okay, right. Probably not the best.
It's not the usual mixer.
So, your first ever album, what was the first song that you ever purchased?
The first album I ever bought was Cyndi Lauper's True Colours, and I saved up for weeks and weeks my allowance money so I could buy it.
Well, here we go. It's BBC Radio Suffolk. It's Friday afternoon. Matt Marvel sitting in for Lesley Dolphin, and our sofa guest this afternoon, Joanna van der Hoeven, and this was her first ever record. Cyndi Lauper, True Colours, is BBC Radio Suffolk. It's Friday afternoon. That's Joanna van der Hoeven's first ever album you purchased, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So, was that your favourite track off the album? Because there's
Yes,
more on
it
there.
was. Yeah, no, I love that. I used to sing that when I was playing with my Barbies.
Oh, so what year was it? 80, 84,
Honestly,
85?
I can't remember. It was so long ago.
Okay. So Stephen Foster coming up at 4 o'clock this evening. Lynn Mortimer previews the best of the weekend's TV when she joins for us in the first hour of the programme. Suffolk's Day in Detail from 5 o'clock, of course, and after 6, your Friday mix of music and sport, including Foz's weekly catch-up with Walkie and Brenner to talk Ipswich Town Football Club. So back to Joanna this afternoon and the future then. So we know what you're doing now. You're a Druid priestess. You've got the college. You do belly dancing lessons. You ride horses sometimes, occasionally. You love the outdoors. What's the future hold for you?
Hopefully I'll be able to take a lot more time just to focus on my writing more, because that's been something that I can do in fits and starts, but I haven't had a long concentrated effort. So hopefully this year I've definitely set aside a lot of time just to get that.
And does that work? If you just sit down, can you just start writing material, or do you need to feel creative and feel in the right moment to do it?
You do need discipline. You have to, you have to sit down every day and try it. And if after a couple of pages what you're writing is utter nonsense, then go away and do something else.
Go for a walk. Go for a canoe down the Stour.
Go for a walk, or I'll pick up an instrument and I'll just try and be creative in another way.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm being creative, that's just keeping the juices going. In Druidry, we have a word called Awen, which is often translated as inspiration, and that is at the heart of Druidry, is seeking inspiration, and we search for inspiration through relationships with other people, with nature, to be inspired by nature and to inspire in return. So as long as we're keeping that flow of inspiration going, we can keep being creative, and when we're being creative, we're actually doing something special.
It does. I mean, even if you're not a druid, it seems like quite a good way to live a life, doesn't it? To be inspired by nature and to.
I think
it's not a bad way of living, is it?
No. It's a very sustainable ecological tradition, and anyone has a love for nature, would easily find a place within the Druid tradition. If they like history, if they're interested in the Celts, if they like nature, if they are a very creative, very artistic person, there's a home for all sorts of people within the Druid tradition.
So, you're going to do a sequel to your first book?
I'm hoping so. I'm currently doing a full-length book on Druidry at the moment. But as soon as that's finished, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to get back into fantasy.
And get that first one republished, maybe?
Possibly. Yeah.
Okay, been really good talking to you. You've got one final key question to go. So here we go. Have a dive in there.
What was the last list you wrote?
Oh. Do you write shopping lists?
No, I don't write shopping lists. I think the last kind of list thing I wrote was for our Druid College weekend 2 weeks ago, where I outlined what we were doing throughout the weekend.
It's a list?
It's a list.
It's a list.
Yes.
Joanna van der Hoeven, thank you very much for being my Sofa guest this afternoon on BBC Radio Suffolk, and I'm sure we'll meet again at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.